I'm Paivi, an artist and art teacher from Finland. And with this video, I invite you to paint intuitively with me. And painting intuitively here means that when you're beginning, you have no idea what you're going to create. And when the painting progresses, you become clearer and clearer. I've received 60 different gouache colors from Arteza, a company that manufactures art supplies. I'm going to use every single color of the 60 color set, but if you have less, or if you want to focus on specific favorites, you can definitely use this method for that too. I have a 60 color gouache set, a water brush set of 6 different brushes, watercolor paper and fine liners. I start with browns and greys, and there's shiny blue too. I explore the transparency by thinning some areas with water and adding thick paint on some. I focus on a small area at a time and try to immerse in it. I'm imagining a mini world, or painting a small room, or creating just one stone and a splash of water. When beginning the project, allow your associations to flow freely. Don't judge what you paint. You don't even have to like it. The session has just started, so this is only a warm-up. Yellows are my favorite colors because they cheer up, lighten up, and work with almost any color. When painting watery yellows on the top of the previous layers, yellows are like glue that attaches individual spots in place. When this kind of integration happens, I begin to see what I've painted as music. Here I hear dark notes, metallic voice, joyful violins. This stage is about setting the atmosphere. If you are a beginner, you might feel the urge to rush. But what about choosing the opposite? Changing to a small brush and slowing down. Notice the slight differences in various tones and also how the thickness of the paint affects the color. I love to paint gradients, changing color gradually to another and thinking softness and gentleness. Reds and warm thoughts go so well together. Now when we are in the middle of the candid dream, it can all begin to look a bit too sugary. Let's have some salty pastels and healthy greens to get a wider variety of flavors. Variety is a big word, and it's not easy to maintain. Forget colors for a while and look at the shapes and their sizes in my painting. There's not much variety there. Most of the elements look similar in shape and size. It's funny that we humans like to create identical elements, but feel drawn to art that has more variety. So let's move on to adding some smaller spots. Resist the urge to cover the whole paper with all kinds of little spots. Then the result looks more like busy fabric instead of an image. I like to add smaller elements near the bigger ones. They're like staples, attaching the biggest splotches firmly on paper. Now I'm more observant of the shapes that I'm painting, trying to get more variety than just making round spots. In this project, we aim to create something that will spark our imagination. So now it's time to add some depth to the image. If we eliminate the pigment and analyze the differences between lightness and darkness, you can see that my piece is fairly dull. It has only a few small darker areas and some light areas, but the differences between those are not so dramatic. And imagination needs drama. So let's have some cooler and darker colors and use them for creating both small and big elements. When everything has been soft and lovely so far, now we can also add some more pointy shapes. Let's talk about the beauty of dark colors. If you're a beginner, you easily make darks less darker, and that reduces the contrast of the piece and takes the power away from the piece. When you want power, you also want big contrasts, and you also want to use very, very dark colors. So be bold and don't be afraid of darks. Make your darks darker. After the sharpness and drama becomes a set of neutrals and big clumsy strokes. I turn the image upside down to change the view. It gives a fresh perspective and new energy. As you have probably noticed so far, I like to work so that the paper gets filled gradually. Every layer doesn't fully cover the previous one, but spreads out a little bit more. This way, the courage and the vision grow slowly but systematically towards the end. It also allows me to cherish fun details and happy accidents from the time when we were just warming up. I fill the last blank spot with greens. The fun thing with gouache is that you can add brighter layers on the top of the dark ones easily because the paint is opaque. Now when the paper has been covered, the final image has to be discovered. It's more about the matter of choosing what to highlight than what to add there. I used the set of reds to highlight the lovely blue area on the bottom. My last set has whites, and I have intentionally saved it last. To me, whites are like dangerous weapons. If I use them too much, the image gets busy and it dies. So I like to use whites very sparingly, especially titanium white, which is the most opaque one. If I turn the image upside down, a big empty area in the center becomes more noticeable. I add some white bubbles to fill it a bit, because I haven't yet figured out what I want to express. These are like marks that indicate that something should be added there once I'm more aware of the meaning of this piece. I show my normal working speed here because I don't want you to think it's all very effortless, especially now when I'm in the ugly phase, when everything looks meaningless and my energy has dropped down. The best way to get out of this miserable state is to get the same mindset that we had in the beginning. Just focus on a small area and make it as beautiful as possible, not worrying about what it represents. Now I'm using the whole color palette and also create new color mixes as I go. The happy colors of this piece make me think about home. I'm a homebody and I also love house plants. In my long list of what I like to draw, there are also fruits, flower pots, splashes of water and spots of light, all that I now see in this piece too. But how representational this image needs to be? Can I just tweak some abstract elements that remind me of flourishing plants, juicy fruit trays and soft textiles? Or do I need to make sure that you also see the same and paint them more accurately? This is a matter of taste and I quite like the middle road, including abstract elements in my art, but also making some of them more realistic. I don't want to alienate people who find abstract art too difficult to understand, but I also want to leave some room for imagination so that what you see here can be different from my vision. When I paint, I often think about the image as a stream of water where one element leads to another. So they're all flowing in the same space, and I want to keep the viewer inside the space as long as possible. So I try not to place the most interesting elements near the edges, but I try to add elements that are arrow-like shapes that point towards the center, where I want the viewer to stay and what I want the viewer to see. If you have thick layers of gouache paint, fine liners may not be the best solution. It can be better to use just a thin brush. The tip of the fine liner gets broken quite easily, no matter what brand it is. So be careful when you're using the fine liners. On the other hand, I enjoy using pens. Fine lines are so much easier to make with a pen. One of the most difficult things when you're finishing the image is to decide which elements are less important. And you know, sometimes it feels like you're choosing between your children. How could this element be more precious than that one? But that's what really makes the image, that there's some kind of hierarchy between the elements, that all the elements don't have the same weight, don't have the same importance. And sometimes you have to paint over all the prettiness that you've created if there are other areas that you really want to bring up. As a former engineer, I like to keep things organized and clean. But on the other hand, when I'm in the process of creating, I'm often terribly messy. So I started this video with hopeful mind that I won't make a mess. But towards the end, there's spots of color on the surface and it looks like I'm losing a bit. I'm making a mess around the painting. I think that my country, Finland, affects this so that we in Finland are quite... But you know, there are jokes about Finnish engineers, how they are fact-focused and don't always see the whole big picture. And that engineer really comes up when I'm creating. Oh, Paivi, she says, you're making such a mess and everybody's watching. But then, on the other hand, there's a creative part of me that wants to come up and who doesn't really care. And I think that that's one of the big things in art, that you can turn these things around. So I'm telling my inner engineer, go away, let me make the mess. And then come back and clean it all up. I know I'm very near the end, when my strokes get smaller and the spots get tinier, and I get the feeling that, oh, there's one more thing and that's so tiny I hardly can see it. But if you're not so experienced in finishing, I have a couple of tips for you. The first is that stop the session and take a break and then finish your piece, because usually it's better if you can work in many sessions instead of one. You see the big picture differently and you get new thoughts. And I think that it's the beauty in the intuitive process that the image continues to evoke thoughts and that you can continue that even after a break. Another thing is that make sure that when you look at the piece, you always look at the same spot, and that spot is your focal point. And if it doesn't show well enough, add some brighter and darker areas around it so that it's easily found. It's like the leader of the pack. Enjoyed painting with me, and I hope you subscribe to my weekly emails. I blog about art every week. I don't make new videos every week, but there's new ideas and a new article in my blog every single week.